And I now give the floor to the representative of Algeria.
Thank you, Madam President. First, allow me to thank you for convening this important meeting. I would also like to extend our appreciation to Mrs. Brandt-Keris, Mr. Paulson, and Mrs. Mitsuya for their insight on this critical issue. The worsening situation in Gaza, tragically, was foreseeable, with famine now ravaging the already suffering Palestinian population. Humanitarian organizations have repeatedly sounded the alarm, issuing urgent warnings as the international community remains unable to halt the oppression by the occupying Israeli forces. As President Abdelmajid Tebboune stated, this aggression clearly illustrates the international community failure to enforce universally applicable rules. The catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza is not incidental, but rather a consequence of a deliberate, man-made policy of deprivation imposed by the occupying power. As noted by the United Nations Special Rapporteur for the right to food, and I quote, "On 9 October 2023, Israel announced its starvation campaign against Gaza. By December, Palestinians in Gaza made up 80% of the people in the world experiencing famine or catastrophic hunger. Never in post-war history had the population been made to go hungry so quickly and so completely." End of quote. This chilling report underscores the gravity of the deprivation inflicted on Palestinians, particularly in northern Gaza, where people are literally dying from starvation, from famine. This is a clear use of starvation as a method of war, which constitutes a war crime. Madam President, today, words cannot capture the horror endured by civilians in Gaza, especially in the north. The intent behind these policies has become starkly clear. Empty northern Gaza of its inhabitants. This is not a mere speculation. It reflects an established, recognized policy openly acknowledged by Israel, systematically aimed at displacing Palestinians from this area. The Israeli Defense Forces have clearly stated that, and I quote, "Palestinians will not be allowed to return to their homes in northern Gaza." This stance blatantly violates UN Security Council resolution, including Resolution 2735, which guarantees the right of displaced persons to return to their home. To make this decision effective, on 6 October 2024, Israel decided the northern Gaza Strip a combat zone, ordering all civilians to evacuate. Médecins Sans Frontières reported that their staff are trapped in Jabalia, stating, and I quote, "Nobody is allowed to get in or out. Anyone who tries in getting is getting shot." During last month of October, civilians in northern Gaza have been under siege with no confirmed food deliveries. Those attempting to obtain aid have faced targeting. And the situation throughout the entire Gaza Strip is appalling. Despite repeated call from the international community, despite resolution adopted by this Council, and despite the established UN mechanism, only 37 trucks entered Gaza per day during the month of October. May I recall that they were more than 500 last year. And this month of October saw the lowest level of humanitarian access to Gaza. And to make things worse, not a single authorization for import of commercial food has been issued by the Israeli authorities. Madam President, amid this crisis, the Israeli occupying authorities decided to halt UNRWA's operation in the occupied Palestinian territories. This constitutes another act of collective punishment against a Palestinian population entirely dependent on these services for survival, further compounding their suffering and denying them their right to life and dignity. The life of children, women, and the elderly, in fact, every civilian in northern Gaza, are at imminent risk. These people cannot be left to face alone an occupying Israeli power that disregards all rules and responsibilities concerning human lives. Let me remind you that the Israeli finance minister stated that, and I quote, "It may be just and moral to starve the 2 million residents in Gaza." End of quote. And we, as members of this Council, must uphold our moral and legal obligations. The resolution put fought by elected member of the Security Council under the coordination of Guyana demands immediate adoption. There is no time to waste. The IPC report warns, and I quote, "Failure to respond to these calls within the next few days will result in a further deterioration of the humanitarian situation and additional, avoidable civilian death." End of quote. This Security Council must act now, decisively, to impose a ceasefire, an immediate ceasefire, an unconditional ceasefire, and a permanent ceasefire to end the collective punishment of the Palestinian people in Gaza and uphold our commitment to international humanitarian law. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Algeria for their statement.